you can take the leap. And with the incubation center at KRMU, the things are getting possible. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any queries, you can reach me on LinkedIn, or you can mail it to me, or you can connect with Dr. Anshika. She'll connect us with us. So sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving us the deep insight of understanding how can we start a new business, factors supporting and expanding the opportunities for entrepreneurship, and how can we select a business plan. It is indeed a very pleasant to hear from you the factors that can promote the entrepreneurship. Thank you, sir. The next expert of the day is Mr. Manan Isaar, who is the founder and CEO of PiltOver Technologies. He is the fervent innovator. He has undeniable experience in the field of electronics and has worked on various innovative technologies in multiple domains. Thank you, sir, and we welcome you for joining us today in this webinar. May I now request you to take us to your journey of being an entrepreneur, that how did you start with your business idea so that it can motivate all of us to be an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. First of all, thanks a lot for the opportunity. I think it's wonderful that universities are coming up and trying to motivate students at a very early stage to get into the whole scenario of creating their own businesses and being job creators. So again, I would want to talk more about why it's such a bubble when it comes to the startup ecosystem. Back in 2012 was when I first heard the word startup in India. It was very early stage. Mostly people were looking forward to doing business, how Mr. Puneet had mentioned, the slight variation between the terms as the whole ecosystem evolved. So 2014 onwards, we saw the whole wave picking up. So I think one of the most important things that students need to understand and be very open about is the fact that why somebody, why the government, why the university, or why any other organization would want to help them. So I think that's a very major doubt, that very basic doubt that really needs to be cleared. So when you look at things from the government's perspective, it's very easy to think why would government help me on my idea, or why any incubator, why are these incubators set up? So you go down to the fundamentals, you understand how and why the government is trying to come up with these schemes. So it's so let's say if in a country there are 100 people and 20 of them are unemployed. The first reason that the government could give for those 20 people being unemployed is the fact that they're not skilled enough. Now, as the population increases, let's say in the country of 200, now there are 120 people who are unemployed. The government cannot give the same reason, where, hey, 120 people are unskilled. So in order to prevent the whole social breakdown from happening, I think this is one step that the government has taken, where they want to set up these incubators and ensure that people are creating more jobs at the grassroots level itself. So let's say if today you start up and your company flourishes, you will be able to provide, let's say 10 to 15 people jobs at a very early stage. So that takes that load off their shoulders. So that's their win condition. So it's important for you to understand that the government or the other organizations are really doing it because they also want to do it. So it's important to know that, because most of the times people have this doubt as to why anyone would help me, or why any government or any other organization would want to fund whatever idea that I have. So I think having these doubts cleared and having a logical reasoning to that could be the first step of motivation, where it's a win situation for everyone in the ecosystem if your startup works well. Talking about my journey, I started back in 2012. Like I said, I was the technology head in one of the 3D printing manufacturing startups. So we were manufacturing 3D printers back in 2012. We were amongst the first 5 organizations in India to do so. We raised a couple of rounds of investment where, however, I wanted to develop more products in the healthcare space. So I left that first company, which is still running under 2 different brands. and decided that I wanted to like develop something in the field of medical science. I'll walk you guys through about like what PiltOver Technologies is currently doing and like how we started, and give you a brief example on like how easy it is, like if you're very persistent about like what you want to do as well. So the whole idea in PiltOver like started where we were working on the dental labs. We were trying to develop a machine we call Arate, where we create dental restorative products at a very rapid speed through additive manufacturing, which is again 3D printing. So I was like very excited when it came to different kinds of technologies that were coming up, and like it's the same like how Mr. Puneet had mentioned today, that like the future technologies like AR and VR are like could be like one of the most prominent ones in the education industry. So again, like how he mentioned, it's a land of opportunities because there are so many problems, right? So maybe like look on those fronts, like try to identify problems that would personally suit you and would interest you. Could be a good start to it. For us, it was the fact that I was really interested in developing technology. So moving from there, like we had a collaboration with Manipal University, and Manipal had a collaboration with Jaipur Foot, which is like one of the biggest rehabilitation centers in the world. And they were looking for a very low cost prosthetic hand. So to be very honest, I had no prior experience of prosthetics. So like for those who think like we are like experts in that domain, it was nothing like that. It was literally like a challenge given to us, a technology challenge that we thought like we would be able to solve using 3D printing. And we developed our very first prototype, which caught a lot of attention. And we realized that the market scenario in this domain is really lacking the kind of quality products that could be provided given the kind of technologies that are available today. So we then started developing a product, multiple iterations, spent over 2.5 years in designing, developed over 140 different prototypes to solve the issue where the prosthetic hands that are available in the market today are either really expensive, and the ones which are lower cost have very limited utility. So that is like what PiltOver is all about. And I'll just like give you a brief runway of like what we do at PiltOver, and like then come back to how you guys could start more about it. So to solve that issue, like we developed IDA M Series 1, which is a totally mechanical prosthetic hand. It is used for people who have a single hand amputation. So like being a mechanical prosthetic hand ensures that the cost is less. The reason like we've priced it less again is because like we want to ensure that the way the business is carried out in this particular domain is very smooth, because it's mostly large non-profit organizations or the government organizations giving these hands to people for free. There are several universities, several large like organizations who are doing these camps where they tend to give these disability products to people for free. So if they're giving it to the masses, like in a large quantity, the pricing had to be lower. So that's like the market segment that we chose. The hand was packed with features such as like 5 adaptive fingers, a 180-degree rotational wrist, 90-degree movable thumb to ensure that you can pick up different types of objects. And these were all technology challenges, something that we learned as we started developing things. I mentioned that we iterated over 140 different times. So it was nothing but like engineering trials where we kept like trying different mechanisms till we actually like got the kind of stability that we needed in the hand. We analyzed the market and realized that like when it comes to the Asian market, it's a huge problem where the people in today's world at the price that we developed IDA M Series 1 were given a cosmetic hand. So let's say like even if people talk about, let's say, giving out 1,000 units of prosthetic hands to these people who are really poor and cannot afford prosthetics, there is no real social impact because they're not able to like have an impact in their individual lives. So we talked about how there's like a horizontal scope for social impact, like where like you talk about how much reach you've had in terms of how many hands you've given. But we also wanted to talk about the depth it has in terms of like how much impact it has had on an individual life as well. So that's like what we kept in mind when we were trying to develop the product. We, like I said, like raised a pre-seed round with Thinkubate, which is an investment organization. in Mumbai, and Hatcher Plus, which is an investment organization in Singapore, and raised our first pre-seed investment at $1 million valuation. Like these are like a few of the events that we took part in, and I think like this is also very crucial. I'll talk more about it like post the presentation about like how like it is useful to go for different kinds of events and like workshops to be able to validate the ideas that you're working on. So we represented India and Israel for Start JLM, where they select one person each from 19 different countries and put them together in like a healthcare bootcamp to like ensure that there is transfer of technology and better understanding about like what the future technologies hold. That's where they talked about like IDA M Series 1 being the world's most functional mechanical prosthetic hand. We were also amongst the top 50 startups in India. IIM Calcutta NDTV Smart 50. It was a TV show, something similar to Shark Tank, but like organized by the central government, along with IIM Calcutta and NDTV, happened on a national scale. So we also got a chance to like reach the top 50 and be there on the final event. We are also associated with Kerala Startup Mission, which is again a government organization. And like I'll tell you like why I'm mentioning these particular terms and how it could be relevant for your startups if you're like thinking of starting something up. So how like I'm talking about Kerala Startup Mission being a government body like of Kerala as a state. So like each different state have their own startup bodies today, which have like a set of funds that they have allocated to help startups grow in that particular region. So that could be like one of the local resources that you could make use of. Like if you're trying to set up your startup, like I think initially it's really important you start at your college or university's entrepreneurship cell, build that business idea, have strong mentor connects, which I think like your university is already doing brilliantly, like hosting events like these and many more, like would give you a better perspective about the kind of things that you can do. It'll give you a much wider perspective and make you understand that it's possible. Even though like people talk about startup rate of failure being 90%, I personally feel that like it's very easy to be on the rest 10% spectrum if you're like very realistic, honest, and persistent about the idea that you're working on. So when I say honest, I think like it's important to have that kind of a self-reflection about like what your thoughts are and what your plans are, and like how honestly like you're willing to execute them and get those results. So I think talking about like different resources in the like in today's scenario, it's very easy. Back in 2012, for example, if we went for the startup events, like which were more of business events back then, like getting an investment of let's say 10 lakh was very, very difficult. Today there are schemes like Nidhi Prayas, for example, which like most of the universities or incubators have, where let's say if you're trying to develop a hardware technology product, the government gives you 10 lakh to actually develop the first prototype. So just at an ideation stage, if you're able to build like strong thoughts about like what you want to do and like have a proof of concept, for example, you'd be given 10 lakhs from the government to be able to develop the prototype, and hence like the funds keep growing from there, like Startup India Seed Fund, Nidhi Seed Fund, etc. Like there are tons of opportunities that they've kept for startups at a very early age to benefit from and take their startup to the next level. And again, like I'd mentioned, like if your startup grows, it's a benefit for the government too, and that's exactly why they're trying to do it. So don't have that thought like where like, oh, maybe I wouldn't be the lucky one to get this startup, like get the grants or get the funds from the government, because at the end of the day, like they want very genuine and scalable startup ideas to come forward. And I think like universities as a whole in like in our country is doing a brilliant job. Most of the universities have set up their own incubation cells and are trying to motivate students to come forward. I think now the like total decision lies upon you guys as students or faculty members to come forward and like make use of that opportunity, because like if you don't, then like yeah, nothing's really going to happen. And getting that starting point that close to you, where let's say if you're studying or teaching in a university, getting those resources where like they're connecting you with people or giving you other resources or making stronger connects in the government or like other entrepreneurial organizations would be like is something that you should definitely respect and be grateful for, and try to actually make use of it, like while you're there at the university, and start early, like how again, like Mr. Puneet had mentioned. I think it's really important, like because you do need the first like 1.5 years to be able to have a very realistic perspective about like where you're headed when it comes to your startup. Your business plan evolves over time, and also it's important to have good feedback from the relevant industry. And again, I think like these are strong connects that these incubators and entrepreneurship cells help you make. So like this is one of the reasons I talked about like all the events that we have been to. Like we've been to way more events than what I've mentioned, but like these were the only relevant ones. But the reason it's important is because there you are actually competing and showcasing your products to experts from like specific fields. So like these events are generally like you like the flow of these events is mainly like you go online, apply for these events, fill in application, they shortlist you, multiple rounds happen, and then like you're supposed to pitch in front of the jury. Now what's like not crucial is like the result of the event, because at the end of the day, like some people are going to win, some are going to lose, but you get really crucial feedback from domain experts from each of these events. And I think like if you go back and uh, work on the feedback that has been given to you by the domain experts, it definitely like ensures that like your startup is evolving and going forward. And like that is like where I talked about like being persistent comes into play. You take one small step. Let's say don't plan to, let's say, work for 5 hours in 1 week. Work for, let's say, 2 hours every day, but do it for, let's say, 5 days. Like that persistence over time would like reap you huge results. So I think like that is like one general rule of thumb that like we have followed in PiltOver. Like every day, like kept iterating over the product, and like today we have something that like we're definitely proud of. And like we're also developing like more products in the same assistive text field. This is like the electronic version of the hand that like we'll be developing, and this is the myoelectric version. So over the years, like having these kind of thoughts and like this kind of a mindset has helped us evolve as a startup. And if like we can do it, like you guys can do way more, considering like you guys have that kickstart at the start itself, like through your university, like who's taking so many efforts to be able to push you guys towards entrepreneurship. Like if you do have that 5 to 10% motivation in your head, but like are like little hesitant to start, I think like whatever I've told you, being like from my perspective as a startup founder itself, should clarify those doubts, and like at least head you towards the entrepreneurship cell in your university, and like ensure that like you are able to pass that barrier. And I think the rest the university would definitely take care of and push you from there. So I think like that is it from my end, but I'd be happy to like take any doubts that you guys have, or like you guys can just write an email to me. I'll be dropping my email ID on the chat for your university to make use of if any queries are there. So yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. It is indeed a fruitful session, and I'm sure persistence is the key for success. Sir, I really want to know that suppose I want to start my journey as an entrepreneur. So
Right.
do I need to follow some rules? Do we have strict protocols to follow to be a successful entrepreneur?
I think like it is something that you learn as we go. Like again, like nowadays, like I've even seen like some of the colleges offering a degree in entrepreneurship, but I think it is something that like you can't conventionally teach. It's something that like you learn as you go. But like few basic things, like I said, like just be persistent, very important, and having like a roadmap ahead of you. Probably not for 10 years. Like generally, like people are like, okay, how do you see yourself like 10 years down the line? I think that's a very difficult and a very difficult question to answer for most of the people. I think having a better understanding of what you want to do in the next 1 to 2 years is something that is crucial, and also knowing what you want to do, like as in the immediate thing that you want to do by the next week as an entrepreneur is something that's really important. And ensuring again, like whatever opportunities come your way, having like to take that initiative, because at the end of the day, like the universities or the incubation centers or any other organization for that matter would definitely want to support you financially or like through resources or through connects. But at the end of the day, it's your startup, so you have to take that stride by yourself. Also, like take strong decisions. I think like ma'am mentioned about Shark Tank. Our startup was also like amongst the finalists in Shark Tank, but we chose not to go there. Like it was something that like we took as a corporate decision. So it's all about like the decision that you make and what your thought is behind the like decision that you're taking is what's important. Like not for others, but for yourself. So I think like that's the, I mean like that's really what's worked for us, I guess.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I also want to know that whether risk-taking is also worthwhile, like while starting our entrepreneurs, should we take a risk? Like I have just a plan and I am in a dilemma whether to start it or not. So is risk-taking worth?
Right. So I think, like I'd mentioned, like back in 2012, risk-taking was huge risk-taking. Today, it's comparatively less, considering there are so many organizations to support you. So 2012, I remember going to this event and pitching to a couple of people in an organization. I don't want to name the organization. So we proposed to them that we wanted to develop a particular machine, and it would require us to have 10 lakhs to develop the first one. And they said, all right, you guys go ahead and make the machine. And if you make it, we'll give you 10 lakhs. So the mindset back then was like, you guys take the risk. If it works, we'll give you the money. If it doesn't, then yeah, like you guys are on your own. Today, like the government is telling you that, hey, if you have an idea that we find interesting, we'll give you guys 10 lakhs. Please go ahead and make it. Like Mr. Puneet mentioned about Nidhi EIR scheme being there, where like they're giving 30,000 a month as a stipend to the startup founders, like who are in the 3rd to 4th year or like just graduated, being again like reducing those risks that like we're talking about. So today, I think like taking that risk has become less of a risk, but more of a decision that like a lot of students and faculty members or anyone for that matter can benefit from. It's just like a matter of awareness, I think, which is very important. And I think through events like these and more events, I think it's crucial to also like tell the students what are the different kinds of opportunities. And from the student type side, I think it's important to value it. I think if you're getting 10 lakhs from the government, you must like acknowledge the fact that like you are amongst the like that particular batch of people that the government has put faith in. So be like very honest about the ideas that you want to execute. Let's say if you need an X amount of money for like to do a particular task, you talk about that and not like X minus something just to like raise funding. I think that's one issue that I've personally seen in the ecosystem, where people try to raise money through lies that they've told themselves. Like even if you get the money, like eventually you're going to fail because you can't really execute what you've promised the investor. So it's a losing situation for you, the investor, and everybody else who's put in time in this. So just be very realistic about what you want to do. Put in thoughts, put in time, put in efforts to get relevant feedback from the industry, and then I think like everything will just fall into place.
Okay, thank you so much. You have been insisting so much and telling us this, that the government is giving money and all that, right? But money is not the only thing which makes the things go, right? It is one of the essential components.
Absolutely.
So I have an idea, right? Usually students have an idea, brilliant idea. They, according to them, it's a very brilliant idea. Right. And then they think that this technology may work over there.
Right.
They get money also. Okay. But do you think these two ingredients help them to be an entrepreneur, or what else is required? Particularly with your journey, I would love to know it.
Sure, absolutely. I think like you rightly mentioned, I don't think like money is an issue. Like considering in India, like government is giving out so many funds, investors are rather like on the other side, where there are times when investors are pitching to you to actually invest in your organization. It's happened to like most of the startups nowadays. So definitely like raising funds or having that idea is definitely not the most crucial ingredient into having a successful startup. What's really, really important is, like I mentioned, like that process with which you're moving forward with your idea. So like where the first step would be like to get a very realistic perception about like what your idea is all about. So let's say if today I want to build a rocket that goes into space, me sitting in this room and thinking about that idea might seem very fascinating, and I'd be like, okay, like this is the X amount of money that I need, and even if I'm able to get that money, again, like I don't know how it feels like. So reaching out to domain experts initially itself, and making those mentor connects at a very early level would, let's say, clear that image very well for me. Like they would be able to tell me, okay, like this is what you want to do. These are the things that you need to do. These are the regulations that you need to follow. Like these are the things that you must have in your prototype. Otherwise, I'd be wasting at least 5 times more time, or like the time investment that happens, not only mine, like my team's again, uh, to in doing something and then later realizing that like, okay, something is definitely not right with the product or the service that you're trying to offer. So having that mentor connect being number one. Number two, I think it's also important to understand like how you guys manage your journey ahead, like plan it through, not in terms of just financially, but also in terms of let's say like most of the times it happens, let's say 3 friends want to start up and they're like, okay, like we'll all take 33% share each in the company and let's move forward with the company. I think again, it's like all about being really thoughtful as to like how much commitment a particular person would want to put in, and have that have a very realistic approach towards the equity that you would have in the company, because again, like this is something that like as you grow in an organization becomes really important. And again, let's say like if you're from the engineering background, like there could be problems from the accounting side of things. You don't have to be scared, and vice versa. Like people from the accounting side would feel like, hey, I want to build this technology, it will be really cool, but I don't know the know-how of like how I really can move forward and develop this kind of technology. So that's exactly where you go out and hire people, or like hire freelancers, if like that's your model of work, where there could be other people out there who would be able to develop the things that you're not able to do. So being the founder of the organization, you don't need to know everything, but you need to know the basics of everything to be able to move forward. Or like you need to have that willingness to reach out to people and like tell them like this is what you need. So let's say like me, for example, like I never had a lot of accounting background, but today like I have to sit with CS like most of the times, because like it's the year end, like we have to finish our compliances, we're in the middle of fundraising. So these are again like things you learn, but like you don't have to be an expert at. So don't have that like barrier out there in your mind where you're thinking, hey, like I cannot start a company because I don't know this skill set. You can either learn it or have people out there do that for you. So I think like team again being really, really crucial. And the third and like the final thing like from my end is, like I mentioned, persistence. Definitely it's not an easy journey if you're starting up. Like a lot of people doubting you already, like considering the kind of ecosystem that we're in, having like statistics where people say 90% startups fail. But I again like personally feel like if you're doing things thoughtfully, like everybody is smart. It's just like about like how much efforts you're putting in into your startup, and like how thoughtfully you're putting them, and how well you're able to execute it is like what really makes a difference. So like let's say today, like we don't really need very creative ideas. Swiggy, Zomato doing the exact same thing, still thriving. Many local startups like in their regions doing the same job, still thriving. So I think it's more about like you going out there, executing things, and evolving your business plan as you go, like having those one extra decision. So for example, Nokia was like one of the leading mobile phones in the industry. Others like were not even able to like compete with them. They made that one mistake of not moving from Symbian operating system to Android, and like that was the like start of the downfall of that organization. So I think again, like they didn't make a mistake, it's just like a missed opportunity for them. So at the end of the day, every business or every startup like is just a combination and permutation of the decisions that you take as like the founder or as the CEO of an organization. And I think that's what makes or breaks an enterprise. So being scared is definitely like something that you shouldn't do. Just go out and ask help from people. It's just as, let's say like you're sitting here, you know something, and someone comes and asks for your help, you'd be happy to help most of the time. So I think like that's what everyone here like in this call or otherwise out there in the ecosystem is also trying to do. So don't feel shy, don't feel scared, just go out and ask for help. I think that's something that like students really need to learn. And like for the people who are actually providing that help, they need to like little bit handhold them to a certain level, like where they realize, okay, now is the time that like I have the motivation and like I can go forward. And going to these events, the reason I mentioned is also like a good motivation. Let's say you go out to 10 events, you win your first event, you get a huge level of motivation. You keep marching on. I think that's what really like went in our scenario. And like these are the thoughts that I have on what you asked.
So thank you very much. It was really wonderful to know what exactly about your journey, and then the practical issues which come on the way, right? And I'm very happy that you're insisting on team building. And secondly, you're insisting that one has to be constantly on the path of learning and all that, right? So very fortunately, now we have wonderful opportunities for the students, because universities have started some papers on entrepreneurship also. They have incubation cells also, and they bring in entrepreneurs like you to interact with the students, right? So to give them a practical idea and all that. So in KR Mangalam also we have such kind of cell, right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Anshika is heading that cell. So now I'd like to request Dr. Anshika to take over and let us know how this thing is happening in KR Mangalam.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you, Manan, for the wonderful insight which you have given. Actually, whenever I talk to the students who are actually a successful entrepreneur now, they always say that, ma'am, learning and the institutional inputs which we get from our mentors has always given us an edge. So with this idea, we have designed certain papers and of contribution of entrepreneurship at KR Mangalam University. Apart from that, we believe giving multidisciplinary approach to our students. So what we are having all industrial tie-ups. So through industrial tie-ups, students are learning the new technology. When students are learning technology, some are looking forward for the job, but some want to be a job provider. So they are thinking for becoming their own or bringing their own startups. When they want to bring their own startups, they want them a subject or a course should be taught to us which is related to entrepreneurship. In that, we'll be getting a basic education. What is entrepreneur? What are the needs of entrepreneur? What are the skill set required? What is business plan? How we present a plan? Was it feasibility analysis? So these topics are being covered in the university with the help of practical examples. We are fortunate enough to do the tie-up with Atal Incubation Center, Manipal University, Mr. Puneet and his team. They will be giving us all the practical exposures which is required to build that ecosystem. When in the conversation entirely, Namanan, you were saying about the ecosystem. And this is what we have started building at KR Mangalam University. And it is the need of an art. And this requirement has been came from our students. So we always say that this is what the research is. When we talk to a student, they tell us that, ma'am, this is what is required. This is our need. We need mentors. We need startups because we have an idea. But what next after having an idea? We need learning. We need hand holding. We need mentorships. We need incubators to incubate our startups. So are we having those facilities at the university? So considering those valuable points and the feedback which we have generated from our students, we have formulated the structure. The structure is so students take the admission at KR Mangalam University. He has been asked to take out or to fill a Google form. In that he can fill his requirements, that we have investment club, we have entrepreneurship club, we have health club. Depending upon his or her interest, every semester student has to fill that form. With that form, students will be enrolled in the respective activity. And then based on his interest, he has been nurtured in that particular activity. And if the students want to be in startup, sometimes it happens that student have to health society because he or she is inclined into pharma. But gradually, after studying the paper of entrepreneurship, the student realized that I can be a manufacturer of a particular product. They will come to an incubation center. We have our respective mentors based on the expertise of incubators. If it is a agri incubations, we have a agri incubator with us. If it is related to technology, we have an incubator related to technology. If it is pharma, so we will relate the student to the respective mentor. And as you mentioned, learning is very important, and learning take place there only, because people like you who have already seen that struggle, walked on that path, are ready to share your experience. This is great in terms of the students who are actually done something, and they are ready to handhold the people who are look forward. So this is how the chain of Make in India is also working in our country. So this is
Absolutely.
what we are doing at KR Mangalam University. I just want to ask that, see, what is the future of startups in India?
All right. I mean, again, like I think it's a very like subjective answer that like I've given. Like again, it's my opinion. I think definitely like the whole bubble is huge, and like I mentioned multiple times about like the success rate of startups. I think future like is dependent on like how like well the structure is defined today. Let's say like one thing that I feel like in the ecosystem which is lacking is the definition of a startup. Where like let's say like what do we call a startup? Let's say two people sitting in a room coming up with an idea on one day, like and giving it a name is a startup, or like somebody let's say working like on it on a significant level. Like there's no definition in terms of like how like the government or like the organizations are really defining a startup. I think it's crucial, and that's why like I talked a lot about like having that persistence, even if it's less time that you're putting onto the startup, but like do it persistently would reap longer results. I think it's just over time how like the country responds to it, how startups respond to it, and like most importantly like how the like people who are starting up are basically taking these opportunities and like making use of them, or whether they're like misusing them, or like just being totally unaware of the opportunities. I think this is what's going to set the grounds as to like the success rate of startups in the future. And also I think it's very subjective in terms of like the what kind of success are we really talking about here, because like how Mr. Puneet mentioned, there are like different types of entrepreneurs as well. So in our case, like we're a for-profit social entrepreneurship startup, like where we focus more on like how much social impact are we able to drive through the technology products that we're developing. So for us, like success would not mean great valuation in the company. It would rather mean like the kind of impact that we're having through the products that we distribute. So it's different for different domains, but as a whole, I think as a thumb rule, it would be more about like how like the attitude of the people like who are running these startups, or like how the government or the whole ecosystem is shaping it would be able to well define. I don't think like I'm as an individual like qualified enough to estimate like the how successful or not successful the country's startup ecosystem would be, but I hope that it goes really well, and like we are able to create like a significant amount of impact through the startups, and like through the opportunities that we offer the startups as well.
Wonderful. So when you mentioned, Naman, about the journey, and you said that team building, persistence is something which is required. Apart
Right.
from this, which I understand when I talk to my students, is knowledge, the content which you know about the industry in which you would like to go, the market research, the confidence level, and the patience. These all combinations are actually required
Absolutely.
when you want to be an entrepreneur. So when our students come to the university, we give him general courses, which is required as a part of our curriculum. Apart from that, because of the industrial tie-up, like we have an industrial tie-up with BCom and NSC, with BBA, we have a tie-up with Symmetrics, with the MBA, we have a tie-up in IBM. So all these technology giants are giving the insight of a technology, which is artificial intelligence, business intelligence, data analytics to our students. With this, our students are having a lot of idea, and they are coming up with the idea. Suppose one of my student has shared he has started his startup into logistic, where he will be booking the space. Another
Right.
student has started a platform using AI, where he will be building an application regarding the schools. The parents not going, because in this COVID scenario, we don't want to travel from one place to another.
Right.
But for colleges, these types of apps are already available, but not for the schools. So he
Right.
had searched out the problem from there, and he is working here. Apart from that, our university and the schools are working on agri startups. Agri startups are like we have a lot of beehives in the university.
Right.
So we have tried to make honey out of it and sell it. So one
That's
of the
amazing.
students have started that. The processes are already going on. We have started the manufacturing unit, and sooner by the coming semester, product of KR Mangalam University will be out in the market.
That's
So
amazing.
this is how we are developing. And as you mentioned, which is so right, that whenever you are coming out from your college to the university, as Puneet mentioned, that there are so many problems on the way. So
Right.
if you want to be a catalyst, if you think that this can be solved with this particular thing, actually you can be an entrepreneur. It is only the problem identification and giving the solution. It is nothing more, it's not more than this. So you have seen the problem, now you have to think that how you can solve it. And after solving it, thinking, you just have to market it. You have to collect
Right.
do the research, market research, make the product according to the customer needs, and it is automatically sellable.
Absolutely.
So this is how there only the hand holding of our university comes into the picture. We when a student comes to our university, we give a student a mentor. Mentor has maximum 30 students under his guidance. Mentor will take care of everything, like whatever problem students is having academically, regarding the classes, regarding the journey in the university, what club is society the students should offer. Because when there are so many flashy names, students get confused at which is the
Absolutely.
right one for me.
Yeah.
So they can go to the mentor, they can ask them, ma'am, my interest area is this, so what is the right club for me? So mentor will guide them. We have general classes also, which tells about that we have around 44 societies, so how those 44 are developing and what is the different need of every society. So based on students' interest, student will take care of it. After that, if the student comes to my incubation center and tells that, ma'am, I have an idea, we have a very good policy in terms of how to give academic liberty, how to tell the students to be motivated towards his own startup with the learning process in the university. See, when the student is in the university, the foremost thing is learning. So with that learning, the student is going to take advantage and do a successful startup. So we
Absolutely.
have created an ecosystem that the learning should not hamper, but the startup, the student should get a particular time to give into the startup. For that, we are providing an infrastructure to our students to build the startup or their offices within the university only. So we
That's
have a
amazing.
particular block. We will be dedicating certain rooms to the students. If the idea is really good, they will be connected to the different mentors with the help of our different mentors like you in the industry. They can just handhold them. After that, they can build their own office in the university. So as and whenever they have classes, they can go to the classes, and as and when they are free, or any meeting is there or something related to the work is there, they can sit in their office in the premises of the university and they can perform their task.
That's
So this
amazing.
is how this is how we are built. We have already started building this ecosystem, and I'm glad to share that many of my students are part of it. And we look forward to have around 10 to 20 startup by 2023, because the rate my students are approaching me, and we have taken the help of Puneet and team. So now I would like to ask Puneet that when we have done this tie-up with you, what extra value addition your team will be bringing to KR Mangalam University? Puneet. Okay.
I think he's muted.
Might
Yeah.
might be a technical glitch also. So Manan, you have been part of so many activities. So when
Right.
we are doing a tie-up with the Puneet and team, we have planned so many activities like Ideas Storm, a workshop on starter, work awareness camps on entrepreneurship. What do you think that what impact these activities have on students? Are they very useful for them, or it is just for the sake of activities?
No, I think it is very important. Like having, let's say, like hackathons or like event specific events. Like honestly, even workshops for that matter. Like even if let's say 50 people are attending it, you might have like 3 people who are absolutely interested in it after the event or the workshop. I think that's a win condition where like out of those three, two would like gather the strength and like move forward and try to do something with that motivation like consistently. So I think it's really really important, because like if you don't have these activities, then it's a very random scenario where like you like we're just like playing a very passive role, just being there. Having these activities out there like puts us in a very proactive state where we are like instigating some kind of an energy to the students and like giving them the opportunity, like putting it in front of them, having that kind of awareness. And also, let's say for people joining universities in, let's say, their early years, they're not very knowledgeable. Like you mentioned, like you have, let's say, 45 societies in the college. It's very difficult for students to choose. So the same way, like I think they don't know much about the kind of opportunities that, let's say, startups or incubators or other institutes would be offering to them. And having that clarity definitely helps them make a decision or like motivate them towards taking the first step. So I think like absolutely no event is a waste. I think it's really, really important that you like continue doing events and like motivating students in the future.
Thank you, Manan. Because coming this from a successful entrepreneur will give a lot of, impact on students. Because we, as a teacher, when say to the student, they say, okay, ma'am, we'll attend. But when it will be coming from the people like you, they will actually understand the importance of the events which we are hosting in the university. Just for the
Absolutely.
instance, in February, there were around 47 events from 21st February to 25th February, which our university has hosted. And it is all about the holistic development of our students. So we handhold student at every step. We tell them that what is the right choice based on the student interest. We have different tie-ups with the foreign collaboration, foreign universities also, where students are privileged to go. They can have their industry and they can have their internship. They can study for a particular semester and come back. So we have all the provisions for the students in terms of the startups if they want to be an entrepreneur. If they want to go a job, we have a full-fledged placement cell working on it. So this is how our KR Mangalam University is working to develop the students which are enrolled with us.
That's really amazing. Like kudos to you guys, like for having that mindset, like where you guys are again like taking proactive efforts for the students, for startups as well as for jobs. I think like hats off to you guys for providing these facilities to the students.
Thank you so much, Naman. Thanks, Atan. Swati ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Anshika ma'am, for giving us the deep insight of what KR Mangalam is doing at EIC. I would now like to express my deep and sincere gratitude to our experts for taking time out from their utmost busy schedule. And I'm sure each and every one of us present here got to learn a lot about how can we start our journey as an entrepreneur. And what is more important is problem identification and then coming up with the solution. I would also like to thank all my participants for attending the session and engaging with the expert. I'm sure each one of us are motivated. Thank you all for your support and cooperation. Now I would request Avjeet ma'am to take over to the university presentation.
So I think there's some technical glitch. So what I'll request the students, I request the student to visit our website, that is krmangalam.edu.in. You can call us on 011 488 4888. And the admission counselors are there. They will take care of your queries and they will connect you to the respective faculties from the different department. And whatever questions you have, it will be solved. So I repeat, it is 4888 4888. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Thanks, Itan. Thanks you, Dr. Ashok Arora, sir. Thank you, Dr. Swati. Thanks, Itan, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.